Welcome back to Mike Duffy Live. I'm Graham Richardson sitting in. Pierre Poilievre, the Conservative MP from Ottawa area, made some controversial comments on the radio in Ottawa yesterday, just before the apology made by the Prime Minister. Let's first listen to those comments.
Along with this apology comes another $4 billion in compensation for those who partook in the residential schools over those years. Now, some of us are starting to ask, are we really getting value for all of this money, and is more money really going to solve the problem? My view is that we need to engender the values of hard work and independence and self-reliance. That's the solution in the long run. More money will not solve it.
Mr. Poilievre was singing a very different tune after many Conservatives were quite angry with what he had to say in the way he said it and the time he said it. Here he is in the House of Commons earlier today.
I rise today to offer a full apology to Aboriginal people, to the House, and to all Canadians. Yesterday, on a day when the House and all Canadians were celebrating a new beginning, I made remarks that were hurtful and wrong. I accept responsibility for them, and I apologize. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And that was just before question period. Joining us to talk about this, Conservative Dean Del Mastro, Ujjal Dosanjh from the Liberals, and Pat Martin from the NDP. Mr. Del Mastro, this wasn't a mistake yesterday. I believe him that he regrets he said it. He says he's sorry, and I hear all of that. But it wasn't like it was a slip-up. He clearly believes that. What do Conservatives say about that?
Well, I think, first of all, I think Mr. Poilievre, obviously, he's a tremendous young Canadian. He's a great young MP, works very hard, and I think he makes an awful lot of valuable contributions here to the House. Now, his comments yesterday, what are they reflective of? Well, I don't know. Maybe they were simply a reflection that he had at the moment. I don't think he believes that. I don't think that he believes
really?
that. No, I think, like everyone else, he joined with the Prime Minister yesterday in seeing yesterday as a fresh start, a new start for Canada, a new start for relations with Aboriginal Canadians, and a point forward for which we can build, and we can get on a new road, a successful road for Canada's Aboriginals within the Canadian society.
He wouldn't be the only Canadian who expressed those views. There are legitimate questions about how Canadian money is spent. So, Mr. Dosanjh, what's the problem with what he said from your perspective?
Well, I think that the real problem I have is yesterday was a great day for all Canadians, particularly the Aboriginal Canadians. And what surfaced in Mr. Poilievre's remarks is the old Reform Alliance racist attitude that this Conservative Party has been trying to run away from. Mr. Tom Lukwiski made some remarks 15-20 years ago about gays and lesbians, and in fact we were asking the Prime Minister to actually penalize him, get some consequences for him. Nothing was done other than an apology. It clearly shows that if it's a simple apology and not real change, it doesn't work. If there were some consequences for Mr. Lukwiski, Mr. Poilievre would not have dared say what he said.
Mr. Martin, would you go so far as to say it was racist, what he said yesterday?
Well, Pierre sounded like the old redneck hillbillies that we used to make fun of back in the old days, when guys like Herb Grubel, for instance, said similar things in the House of Commons. Dave Chatters, things. They used to say things like, Herb Grubel said, being an Indian on a reserve is like being living on a South Sea island being supported by your rich uncle. And Mr. Harper, I'm sure, has done everything he could to distance himself from those redneck hillbilly kind of statements. So on this very day, he must have hit the roof when Pierre blindsided him with this radio interview.
The other thing, too, is, Mr. DeMastro, the Prime Minister, it was an outstanding day yesterday.
Sure was.
And this did overshadow, in a way, I'm not saying it blew the day away, but if this wasn't there, we'd only be talking about yesterday. So your colleagues say that this speaks to something larger. You say what to that?
Well, that's ridiculous, first of all. Yesterday was a historic day. It's going to go down in the annals of history for this country, and I don't think that this will even ever appear. And secondly, if we're going to hold people to every standard on everything they say, they must firmly believe, and therefore that's what they stand for. I mean, Stéphane Dion came out and called for Canada to invade Pakistan. Is that really what he thinks is a good idea? Is that where he thinks we should go? I don't know. Maybe Mr. Assange would like to hold him to the same standard he's holding Pierre Poilievre to. Would he like to invade Pakistan? Is that a good policy for Canada? I don't know. Maybe he thinks that's a good idea.
That was certainly not his intent. But to make a mistake on that kind of an issue, that's an innocent mistake. That's innocent mistake.
Oh, it's innocent.
But to talk about these kinds of issues, in fact, we were trying to erase several hundred years of mistreatment of the First Nations yesterday. It was a great day for all of us, including the Prime Minister.
And it was a great day.
But Mr. Poilievre actually showed a reflection of what actually led to the kind of mistreatment the First Nations suffered in the first place.
He bothers opposition MPs because he gets under their skin, and that goes around a lot. And there is a significant amount of. I think he does.
Well, that's funny.
Okay, but Mr. Martin, has he done brand damage here, or is this a one-off? How would you characterize this?
I think Pierre's done himself a great disservice. He is a bright young man. I've worked with him closely on the Federal Accountability Act, and I actually quite like Pierre, but I think he's actually damaged his career somewhat. But he did great damage to the project of yesterday, and the project set out by the Prime Minister. No one doubts how sincere the Prime Minister was when he read those words. He was even choked up. For him to be blindsided by one of his rookie PSs on that day, I wouldn't have liked to have been behind the closed doors of the Prime Minister's office when he reamed out Pierre for this blunder.